This is not who he is. He needs to remember his life.
I don't want to be a part of this experiment anymore.
I can't do it anymore.
Let me out of here!
You should hear what they say about him at court. How he mistakes the earth for a side of beef.
But what exactly had Heisenberg said? That's what everyone wanted to know, then and forever after.
I am a man of science, not society. Now go study my brilliance. Go!
If you enjoy science and great storytelling, we've got you covered.
To science!
To science!
This is the Relativity Series from LA Theater Works and the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, bridging science and the arts in the modern world. Hi again, we're back with another science-themed story in the Relativity Series. I'm Ron Lipkin, senior podcast and radio producer for LA Theater Works. You may have heard of Stanley Milgram's infamous obedience experiments at Yale in the early 1960s. In that study, participants were asked to administer strong electric shocks to a subject who gave the wrong answer to a question, not knowing that the shocks were fake and they were the real subject of the study. Our story looks at the ethical and psychological effects of the experiments on the subjects and researchers alike. Here's part one of Please Continue by Frank Basloe, directed by Rosalind Ayres. Susan Albert Loewenberg, producing director. Starring Tara Lynne Barr, Will Brittain, Jake Green, Taj Jegaraj, Rob Morrow, James Scully, Mark Jude Sullivan, and Matthew Wolfe.
Red barn, bright star, tall building, fast horse, wide road, big cake, sad girl, shiny bike, slow dog, sweet plum, wet towel, happy boy, cold drink, strong breeze, soft pillow, old book, green plant, hungry cat, loud bird, hard hat.
I may just have to get a bicycle and pedal myself around town. That's what it's gotten to, quite frankly. I mean, I've been in New Haven barely 2 weeks, already 3 parking tickets, sitting on my windshield, informing me that my vehicle is not welcome in this town. Take a seat.
Thank you, sir.
I may instill the young and hungry minds at Yale with knowledge, but that still does not entitle me to park my car. Supposedly, I've been put on some kind of waiting list. So I decided I would go and inquire on the status of my application, which took significantly longer than I had anticipated. A tremendous amount of waiting and standing to find out where I stand on the waiting list. And thus I'm late. Assuming I am actually late, assuming you actually have an appointment with me. I'm sorry, who are you?
I'm Sanders, sir.
James Sanders.
That's right.
Professor Milgram. You were my thesis advisee.
I go by Jim, actually.
So why don't you tell me about it, Sanders?
Tell you about it?
Your thesis.
My thesis.
Your thesis project.
Look, I'm sorry to...
You're sorry to what?
No, it's just I'd sort of been under the impression that you would be...
That I would be what?
Well, that you would be assigning a project.
Assigning a project?
Yes.
Is that how this works? I'm supposed to assign you a project.
For my junior thesis, my advisor assigned a project.
And how did that go?
You mean the project?
I mean the project. The thesis. The advisor, junior year in general.
May I speak candidly, sir?
I would welcome some candor.
The project I worked on was not the most interesting project.
I see.
It also involved working a good deal with rats, which is something I would really prefer to avoid if at all possible.
Of course.
I figured with psychology you probably don't work with rats very much.
Is that what you figured? Well, I'd like to suggest you take a good whiff of this place, Sanders.
Pardon, sir?
Open your nostrils and take a good wholesome whiff. Do you smell that now?
Yes, sir.
Now, what do you suppose that lovely aroma wafting through the corridors here is?
Rats, perhaps.
Well, rat dung, if we're going to be perfectly precise about the odor's origin. The subtlest hint of sawdust as well, I think. Are you certain that you worked with rats before?
Yes, sir, I did.
Perhaps the rats you employed were constipated, or maybe just blessed with the ability to defecate odorlessly?
I don't think that was the case.
Well, fortunately for you, I am faithfully committed to human research. So, what do you know about mescaline?
Mescaline?
If that's your response, I'm going to assume not much. It's a hallucinogen. It comes from a cactus.
Oh.
I'm interested in testing how mescaline enhances aesthetic sensitivity.
Wow. That sounds quite,
Oh, it's a good bit more than quite, believe me. And I say this strictly outside of my capacity as your thesis advisor. Should the opportunity present itself, a mescal dabble is worth considering. Have you seen this? In the Yale Daily News.
What's that, sir?
On the front page here. City court convicts 20 students.
I did read that.
A lot of names listed here. Do you know any of these fellows?
No, sir. Not personally.
Says it happened over in Calhoun College. Which of the colleges here are you in?
I'm in Davenport College. There has been quite a lot of chatter about it around campus.
20 boys and 1 girl? I imagine there would be some talk. You know, this could actually be your project, Sanders.
My project? I'm not sure I understand.
You must have some sense of what went on there.
I honestly don't know that much, sir.
It is pretty vague here in the paper. No details of the crime were raised at the trial. It was just presented in writing to the judge. And they were all convicted of lascivious carriage, whatever that is. That being said, I'm sure if you track down some of these fellows, do a little investigating, you could find out what really happened. It could actually be quite an interesting retrospective study. The effect group pressure plays in something like this is absolutely fascinating.
That sounds really interesting, but I'm not sure I feel particularly comfortable investigating.
Fair enough. Where are you from, Sanders?
Independence, Kansas.
South of Kansas City and north of the Oklahoma border.
That's right, just north of the Oklahoma border. You know Independence?
I actually saw it on a map. The name stood out. Will you be returning to Independence after graduation?
I'm applying to medical school.
You're going to be a doctor.
Yes. Look, I really do need a thesis project, and though it sounds very interesting, I'm not sure the mescaline one is for me.
No, I don't think so. Do me a favor, read this for me. Aloud, please. I'd like to hear it.
Obedience is as basic an element in the structure of social life as one can point to. We know that given certain general circumstances, such as the situation of an army in war, men can be commanded to kill other men and will obey. They may even be commanded to destroy their own lives and will obey.
I don't like that repeat of obey. Any suggestions for a synonym, Sanders?
They may even be commanded to destroy their own lives and will follow?
No.
Comply.
They may even be commanded to destroy their own lives and will comply.
What is that?
It's a first draft. I wrote it this morning. I'm sending out inquiries to a couple of foundations to gauge interest in the project before sending full grant proposals.
So it's a project dealing with obedience?
Obedience to authority, more specifically. It would involve something which I refer to as action conformity, the degree to which a person's actions can be molded by the pressure of a group or an authority.
I see.
Currently, we see a great deal of experimentation with verbal acquiescence, getting subjects to say things they don't necessarily believe under pressure. For example, your tie is blue. You know it's a blue tie, but I say it's red. Some other people say it's red, so therefore you say it's red. This project will be a fairly stark departure from that kind of work. It would involve getting subjects to take significant action.
What kind of action?
Well, in this instance, they would be asked to inflict harm.
Inflict harm?
It was actually my hope that I could find a committed and responsible student to engage in some pilot work for me, so I have some data for the grant applications. However, before I provide any further detail, I do want to make it perfectly clear that this project would likely end up involving a considerable amount of work, and not be remotely as enjoyable as the mescaline study.
I don't mind the work, sir.
You're sure about that?
I am, truly.
This project is rather important to me, Sanders. I would need to be able to rely on you, your discretion in particular. You'll be working with human subjects, not rats. Subjects who thankfully won't deposit their feces in sawdust, but may find aspects of what they are asked to do to be somewhat disagreeable. For this study to work as it should, it would need to be handled discreetly. Would that be a problem for you?
No, sir. Not at all.
I would assist you in setting up the space and getting the necessary equipment, but you would be tasked with acquiring the subjects and running the study yourself. Does that sound reasonable to you, Sanders?
It does, sir. Absolutely.
All right, then. So, a naive subject comes to a room to participate in a study that he believes will be testing memory and learning.
I do apologize for keeping you, young man. As you may have already heard, we had a few students who were picketing downtown at the Woolworths earlier today in solidarity with the protests going on down south. They were apprehended by the police and taken to the police station for booking. Fortunately, I was able to convince Mayor Lee that it served no one's interest for his police force to criminally charge a handful of student protesters engaged in nonviolent demonstration. Of course, our provost is not particularly pleased with this turn of events. Unfortunately, what I've come to view as the moral issue of our time, Provost Buck views as poor public relations for the university, which, as you can imagine, makes it a little difficult for the two of us to see eye to eye on the handling of such matters. So, it's Mr. Dunleavy, correct?
Yes, sir, Francis Dunleavy.
William Coffin. It's a pleasure, Francis.
I really appreciate your making the time for me.
Of course. Sit down, please.
I doubt you'll recall, but we met once prior, Reverend Coffin. I was at Andover the year you were chaplain there.
Is that right?
I was actually in a production of King Lear there with your wife.
King Lear? You were in King Lear with my wife?
My first and last theatrical production, in fact. We met briefly at the cast party.
Tell me, what part did you play, young man?
I was Curran.
Curran? I'm not...
The courtier?
Not such a big part in King Lear. The courtier, if I recall?
I only had 4 lines, actually. Spent a lot of time moving scenery.
King Lear. I'll tell you, I remember that production well.
Mrs. Coffin was an excellent Cordelia.
She was, wasn't she? Quite a fine Cordelia she made. That must have been, 3 years ago now? 57, was it?
Yes, sir. The spring of 57. It was the end of my senior year at Andover.
So if you were graduating Andover in 57, my very limited math suggests to me that you must now be beginning your senior year here at Yale.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Do you have plans set for yourself after graduation?
My hope is to be a physician.
Medical school. I wish you the very best with that. Now then, you asked Mrs. Horton for an appointment with me.
I did, sir, yes.
Is there something in particular you wish to discuss?
I've been to Battelle Chapel the past few weeks. Before that, not all that much.
May I ask why you've suddenly begun coming to service?
Why? I don't know. I felt a need, I suppose.
I see.
I'd just like to say I've enjoyed your sermons very much, Reverend.
Thank you.
I feel they manage to provoke and comfort. Accomplishing both from the pulpit, well, that seems quite something in my opinion.
That's very kind of you.
There's also a real intellectual rigor to them, which I very much appreciate. I was particularly taken with the way you referenced crime and punishment last Sunday. Not that I've heard all that many ministers speak, I've never been much of a churchgoer, but I don't think I can recall any of them ever comparing Sonia to Christ and Raskolnikov to the thief on the cross.
If you come on Sundays with any regularity, I think you'll find I'm rather unrepentant in my allusions to Dostoevsky.
I was actually hoping I could talk to you about a sermon from last week. You opened your sermon with a line from Augustine, "Do not despair, one of the thieves was saved."
Do not presume one of the thieves was damned.
Yes.
It's a rather remarkable little couplet, isn't it?
It is.
I've always just loved the juxtaposition of those phrases.
The thing is, I've had some difficulty fully comprehending Augustine's meaning. I went back to the Luke Gospel, and I've read through the text a number of times.
What part of it don't you understand?
Well, in the first part, Augustine seems to be telling us not to wallow in our sins, if you will.
Right.
Since, after all, one of the 2 thieves that was being crucified alongside Christ was saved.
Today you will be with me in paradise.
It's Augustine's meaning in regards to the second thief where I feel some ambiguity exists.
How so?
From Luke, we know the first thief was saved.
Yes.
That he would be with Christ in paradise, as you said.
Correct.
But the second thief, I don't see where the scripture even tells us of the second thief's actual fate.
Well, not everything is so explicitly.
For a while, I even began to wonder if perhaps the line should be read without the semicolon. Do not presume one of the thieves was damned. That we shouldn't assume that the second thief was damned.
No, I think it needs to be read with the semicolon after presume. I think the clear assumption is that the man is damned.
Still, it just seems odd to me that from that piece of scripture that Augustine should make such a pronouncement in regards to the damnation of that second thief.
You seem to be particularly concerned with the fate of the second thief.
I'm sorry if I sound a bit ridiculous with this.
No, you don't sound ridiculous at all, young man. It's actually an interesting point you raise. And I'll tell you, I think it is wonderful. Just wonderful that you are probing the text the way you are. And I want to absolutely encourage you to continue to probe. Because it is that kind of serious engagement with the Scripture that allows us to better see and understand. But at the same time, I don't think you really came to my office today because you wanted to grapple with the meaning of Augustine or Luke. Why don't you tell me why you're here?
I guess I've been trying to figure out if I myself was saved or damned.
That sounds to me like quite a conundrum.
Yes. I don't think I can do this.
It's okay. Francis, take your time.
I'm sorry, Reverend. I can't. I need to go. I'm sorry.
Saul, be careful.
I'm being careful.
I don't want the generator to fall.
Jesus, Jim, it's not going to fall. How could you possibly watch that debate and still vote for the guy?
So Kennedy's more photogenic. He shines on the television.
And Nixon glistens.
The man perspired a little at one debate.
And 70 million people were out there with handkerchiefs desperately trying to dab the beads of sweat from their screens.
Hey, I think it's tipping.
It's not tipping.
It is, it's tipping.
It's not tipping.
Just keep your side straight.
I'm straight, goddammit.
All right. Think that should do it?
Mm-hmm. Hey, was there a particular reason we didn't just take the machine off the table before we moved it?
No, I need to get this cable through the window and into the booth.
This place is a little creepy, isn't it? The basement of Lindsley Chittenden Hall, otherwise known as the Dungeon. So can you believe these new dorm restrictions?
Feed me the cable to the window?
Oh, sure, yeah, hold on. There you go.
Thanks.
Yep.
Well, after what happened over in Calhoun, are you really that surprised?
Well, do we even know what really happened over there? I mean, 20 guys, 1 girl, and some vague morals charge of lascivious carriage?
Well, I heard you showed up at Calhoun and, took care of them all, if you will.
Yeah, I heard that too.
The whole thing sounds pretty unseemly.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Jim, but still, I mean, no female visitors on weekdays? No chicks on weekdays, including Friday nights. Friday nights included. We both know that Friday night is, for all intents and purposes, a part of the weekend. I'm sorry. Regardless of what happened over there at Calhoun, and I'm not condoning what happened. It sounds like it was an egregious violation. But these restrictions on female visitors, they just seem like a complete and utter overreaction to me.
So, when was the last time you actually brought a girl back to your room?
You know, I don't see how that's even relevant.
Oh, you don't?
No, how is that relevant?
Well?
No, it's the principle of the matter, Sanders.
The principle?
I'm talking strictly about the principle here. If and when I have a young lady visiting for a weekend and I want to bring her back to my room on a Friday night, I would like to know that the opportunity for such visitation is available to me.
Okay. Duly noted. The cable's in place.
I just want the option.
I think we're ready to get started.
Oh, and in regard to Kennedy and his rather glandular adversary, I do hope you'll keep an open mind.
We need to get started.
I'm just asking for a little open-mindedness.
Okay, you got it.
Thank you.
As I flip the switch for Richard Nixon and pull the lever, my mind will be wide open.
Oh, you're a real hardhead. You know that, Sanders?
Can we just get started, please?
Fine.
Okay.
So just so I have this all straight, this professor of yours really thinks you're going to be able to convince fellow Yaleys to just stroll on in here and use the shock box on me because you tell them to?
And the purpose is to see if they will. To what extent?
Well, you ask me, this whole thing sounds like an enormous waste of time.
Well, at least you're being paid to waste your time enormously.
Speaking of my compensation, I've been thinking I may need a little more than $1 an hour. Is there any chance we can negotiate a...
Here's your script.
There's a script? My.
There's the word pairs and the questions they'll read to you.
Is there a costume?
And your responses as well. So you'll be sitting here in the booth.
Red barn, bright star, tall building. So what, they just read me these word pairs and then they test me on whether I remember them?
That's the basic concept.
Red, sunburned, barn, head. You know, it seems like I tend to answer a lot of these incorrectly.
That's kind of the point.
Is it?
You get it wrong, and then they punish you with a shock when you do.
Oh, I see.
To see if punishment helps with learning.
Oh, I just want to remind you, Jim, that I am a future graduate of one of our nation's premier institutions of higher learning. A place where presidents and titans of industry have come to be educated.
Well, for the purposes of this study, Saul, you're a future Yale graduate who has a little difficulty remembering word pairs.
So you basically want me to play dumb.
I know it'll be a real stretch for you.
Suck an egg!
So look, the professor really stressed that everything be kept as consistent as possible throughout. How you respond to the shocks, my instructions, the way I prod them, we can't vary. It really has to be done the same way for each subject.
All right. I will try and maintain consistency.
I'm serious.
Jeez.
At some point, he's going to come here and observe what we're doing, and I really want to make sure it's run well.
Christ. This guy makes you nervous, doesn't he?
He's trusting me. I just want to make sure we do it properly so he gets the data he needs, and I get a decent thesis out of it. My thesis last year stunk.
You killed a rat, Jim. These things happen.
I didn't kill the rat. It died.
Under your supervision.
I didn't kill it.
Okay.
Look, the point is, I'm going to have med school interviews coming up, and I need a thesis project I can talk about confidently.
You could always get choked up as you reminisce about Binky, the poor little lab rat whose passing came far too soon.
Will you please stop with the rat?
No, it shows a real humanistic side,
I just
Jim.
need this project to go well, okay?
Okay. I will do my very
I'm serious,
best.
Saul. If you don't want to do this, I can get someone else.
No, all right. I got it.
Good.
Jeez.
Think the physical setup is good enough for now?
Indeed.
I figure we can always move things around a bit if we need to.
It is difficult to find that perfect spot to put a shock generator.
So, at the start, you're going to be waiting outside.
In the hall?
Right, in the hall. Each time a new person comes, you're going to be outside in the hall as if you're a volunteer waiting as well. We need for them to believe that you're here to volunteer for this study too. Does that make sense?
It does.
So, once we finish with one of the subjects, you should wait for him to leave the room, and then once he's gone out of the room, you go back out to the hall and wait there for the next subject.
So, let me ask you, am I me, or do I have some kind of stage name?
You just be you, Saul Dashoff, Yale Senior. You saw a flyer on campus and signed up to volunteer in a psychological study to make a couple bucks.
I'm voting Kennedy Johnson, and my Achilles heel are those gosh darn word pairs.
Why don't you go out to the hall and we'll try once through.
Okay, I'm going.
You can come in now. Hi there, I'm James Sanders. Thank you for coming.
Hi there, James Sanders. Saul Dashoff.
Hi.
Hi.
So, the other fellow will introduce himself as well, I suppose, and I'll shake his hand, I guess.
Should I shake his hand too?
Yeah, suppose you should.
Hey there, Saul Dashoff. Are you voting for Kennedy?
Just shake his hand, please. Don't engage him.
Okay, sorry. Just thought it might help relax
And
things.
then I'll do my introductory speech. I'm conducting this study for my senior honors thesis. As I think you know from the advertisement to which you responded, you volunteered to participate in a study on memory and learning. Memory and learning. With this study, I'm going to be specifically examining the effect that punishment can have on memory and learning. Shit.
And perhaps you could utilize the shock box over there to assist you in memorizing your lines.
You're real gas.
Zap! Now I remember.
In order to do this, for the purposes of this study, I'm going to ask one of you to take on the role of the teacher and the other to be the learner. I thought a random drawing would be the fairest way to determine which role each of you would play in the study. I have 2 pieces of paper here. On one piece is written teacher, and on the other learner. So, if you can each take a piece.
Thanks.
And so I will ask the other guy what his piece of paper says first. He will read it and say teacher.
Wait a second. Mine says teacher too.
They both say teacher.
They both say teacher? Yeah, that seems like a problem.
Your piece of paper will always say teacher, but you will always say learner.
I will always say learner. So, basically you expect me to lie.
Deceive. It's deception, not lying.
Oh, there's a distinction there?
So, anyway, you'll say your piece of paper says learner. Then I will continue. Before we get started, I wanted to give each of you the $2 that was agreed upon, so then I'll hand each of you the $2.
Ooh, bonus money.
You'll give me your money back when the subject has left the room.
That's a bit of a tease.
So now we'll need to set the learner up so that he can receive some form of punishment. So then I'll walk you both over and show you the shock generator. This is a shock generator. As you can see, there are 12 knobs moving from left to right in increments of 30 volts, going from voltages which are labeled safe to moderate to dangerous and then up to extremely dangerous. Then I'll take you both over to the booth and I'll hook you up to the machine. The learner will be connected to this machine, and you, as teacher, will give him shocks of increasing voltage for each incorrect response. We're now going to hook the learner up to the machine. Learner, if you will, please take a seat in the chair, and so you'll sit in the chair.
Okay.
And that's when I'll check the electrodes to you and strap you down.
Strapped down for $1 an hour. Delightful. And you sure I'm not actually going to be shocked here, Jim?
I'm pretty sure.
Great.
Okay, so why don't we start working on your responses? It's going to be kind of tricky keeping them consistent, so let's start on page 2 with sad.
Can you hand me my script? Thanks.
That's the first time you actually make a sound. So he reads you sad face, girl, song, poem. You respond?
Face.
The subject tells you that is incorrect.
Ah, damn!
He then tells you he's giving you 90 volts and presses down the lever. Good, but a little too strong.
Yeah?
And since it's the first time you make a sound after being shocked, we needed to kind of surprise them, and then for the subsequent ones to build up in intensity. Even less, almost inaudible, so he's not even sure what he's heard. Good, yeah, I think that's good. Can you do it again? Yeah, that seems right. So then he reads you the correct response, which is sad girl. Mm-hmm. Shiny, penny, shoe, bike, car.
Shoe.
Incorrect. 120 volts. Try a little less. Good. That's it. Again. The correct answer is shiny bike.
I'm glad you came back, Francis.
Thank you for making the time to see me again. I do appreciate it.
Of course.
Look, I want to first apologize, Reverend Coffin.
There's no need.
No, there is. I should not have left here in the manner I did. That was inexcusable. It's just it's rather difficult for me to...
I am not here to judge you, Francis. You should know that. Sit down.
Thank you. I attended the debate you had the other night with Professor Weiss.
What did you think?
I found it enlightening, listening to a debate with a philosopher about how we need religion in order to lead an ethical life.
I'm not sure I was wholly convincing, but I do truly question whether man has the capacity to altruistically love his neighbor without religion.
You talked about guilt as well? How a deeper sense of guilt is rooted in some kind of faith.
Don't get me wrong, I'm under no illusion that guilt feelings can't be had without faith, but to actually engage with the cause of that guilt, to understand the behavior that's motivating that guilt feeling is, in my opinion, aided by some kind of religious conviction.
I feel guilt, Reverend. Lately I feel rather lost in my guilt, and I don't know what to do. You see, there was an incident.
An incident?
At Calhoun.
Calhoun College?
I was there, Reverend Coffin. I was among those who...
I see.
I was not among those named. My name was not printed in the newspapers. I was never punished. I did not get arrested or suspended like the others.
And why was that?
Why? I don't really know.
You don't know?
No, sir. There are a few of us who... As I understand it, the girl, she picked out faces from the yearbook. As you know, the incident happened at the end of last semester. It was only after the summer break that the police became involved. I suppose during the interim she may not have recalled me being there? Perhaps my face was not memorable enough. Perhaps there were just too many of us. I don't know. I honestly don't know why she did not pick me.
So, in your mind, for that reason, you were saved?
From punishment, at least. Yes.
But at the time these awful events were brought to light, did you feel that you were saved?
I'm not sure what I felt, Reverend.
You watched fellow students get arrested, suspended from school for the very same offense that you yourself had committed.
It's not like I didn't feel anything. It's sort of like I'm the third thief.
The third thief?
The theoretical thief who stole as the other two thieves had, but yet managed to avoid hanging there with Christ. I cannot stop thinking about it, about her. I just can't stop. I did something I would never do. I don't know how I allowed myself to do it, something so unconscionable. But I did. I've been seriously contemplating turning myself in.
Turning yourself in?
Yes.
So what, you want to climb up there and hang with the other thieves, is that it? And what do you suppose that will accomplish?
I'll be punished like the rest of them were.
Those that were punished were suspended for the semester and given a modest fine. Do you really think a brief vanquishment from campus and a few dollars will ease your guilty conscience?
It's what I deserve.
But what about her? What does she deserve, Francis? What does that girl deserve? Guilt is hell. It is absolute agony being guilty, isn't it? But I can assure you it is a whole heck of a lot easier to cling to that guilt than it is to take responsibility.
I am trying to be responsible here, Reverend Coffin.
No, young man, you're not.
No, I am. I really am.
No.
I'm talking about turning myself in.
As far as I can see, all you are really doing is seeking out punishment.
And that's not taking responsibility?
It's just taking what you did and making it bearable for yourself.
I don't understand.
You are seeking out punishment to avoid judgment. You think if you were punished it will all somehow be resolved. But deep down, you know it's not enough. Why did you come here, Francis? Tell me. Why? Why come to me with this? Why not go directly to the police? Why not your dean?
I don't know.
You didn't need to see me to be punished. You could have just marched yourself over to your dean's house, beat your chest, and professed your guilt, offered yourself up. But instead you came here to see me. Why?
I don't know why.
Tell me why, Francis.
I told you already, Reverend, I don't know.
Yes, you do.
I really don't.
You most certainly do.
I don't know.
Atonement, Francis. You want atonement. Atonement. You want to atone. To open your heart and be at one with your own self and at one with her. You may think you don't. You may even rail against the very notion, but that is why you are here. Because you know it's far, far easier to cling to guilt and consider yourself damned than to actually stick your neck out and ask to be forgiven. You are here right now. You are with me right now because you know the punishment alone is not adequate.
I'm applying to medical school. I'm supposed to go into this profession where I am expected to take an oath to not cause others harm. But there I was. That girl. She was being treated without a shred of human dignity. How? How do I atone?
When I was at Princeton last year, Sanders, I was just a lowly research assistant. I barely had a proper desk and chair to call my own. But you know what I did have? A space to park my car. I come here, I'm a professor. Again, an untenured assistant professor, but still a professor. I ask for a parking space when I'm offered the job. I try and negotiate for a space to park my car, and they tell me they cannot guarantee parking. There is no guarantee, but they are confident, very confident, that they will be able to find me something. Rest assured, I will have a place to park my vehicle. The moral of the story, and quite possibly the most valuable piece of advice you will receive in your 4 years at Yale, never, ever take a job without parking. Because without parking, you are just a fellow with a car and no place to put it. Remember that, Sanders.
I will, Mr. Milgram.
Get parking.
I definitely will.
I'm completely serious.
I understand, sir.
Good. So tell me, how are things proceeding so far?
Well, I posted the advertisements.
I saw a couple of them on campus.
And I do have the 20 subjects signed up.
Already?
Last night we saw our first 4.
Huh. And how did that go?
Well, it was kind of...
Kind of what?
Well, incredible, really.
Incredible how?
Going into it, before we started, I honestly didn't think any of them would actually do it. I really thought, at the very least, once Saul starts in with his yelling, that they would stop.
And they did not stop?
We saw 4 subjects. They came in one after the other. I gave them each their $2 up front. I explained it to them, the experiment. They sat down behind the machine. We got started, and not one of them disobeyed. Well, one fella actually came somewhat close.
How close?
He stood up at 210 volts. When Saul was yelling to be let out, he stood up at that point, and he seemed quite intent on stopping. I honestly thought he was done.
But you were able to get him to continue?
I prodded him on a good bit. Please continue. The experiment requires that you continue. And before I knew it, he was back down in his chair, and he'd gone all the way as well. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I keep trying to figure out if we're somehow doing something incorrectly, and that's why they all...
Is there something in particular?
No, sir.
Look, I need you to tell me if there's something that you're doing.
We really did it as consistently as possible throughout. My prods, Saul's response.
Then what's the problem?
I don't know.
Well, it sounds like something is bothering you, so why don't you just tell me what it is?
I guess I just wasn't prepared for them all to comply. I had sort of assumed they would all stop once Saul starts yelling, but they walk in and they sit down at the machine, and by the end they've complied. Saul screams in pain. I push them to continue. They try to resist, but in the end, they comply. And so I keep asking myself if there's something that we might have done wrong in how we were administering things that made them comply.
When do you run it again, Sanders?
Next Monday night.
I'd like to come by then.
You want to come by?
I know I said I would give you a couple of weeks before I came and observed, but in light of what you're telling me, I think it's important I see what's happening.
Of course.
Okay, then. Well, if there's nothing else, I will see you at Lindsley Chittenden on Monday night.
I don't understand why we tell them the shocks aren't dangerous.
What do you mean?
It feels like I'm letting them off the hook, so to speak.
The learner is screaming in pain. It's clear the shocks are painful.
But what if in addition to that, I actually tell them they're painful? Rather than just saying the shocks aren't dangerous, I could say the shocks can be painful, but they aren't dangerous.
Fair enough. Why don't you make the change and try it, and we'll see how it goes on Monday night.
How did you come up with this experiment? I just wondered where the idea came from.
You recall when we first met, I mentioned the work that was being done with verbal acquiescence.
My tie is blue, but you say it's red, so I say it's red.
Exactly. Well, as a graduate student, I focused on studying that sort of conformity. I would put a subject in a room with some other people they did not know were actually working for me, Confederates, if you will. And I would ask them all to listen to 2 sound tones of different lengths and then tell me which tone was longer. I would play these sound tones, and I would watch as subject after subject after subject would sit there and give clearly wrong answers solely because others around them were giving wrong answers. It was certainly compelling enough work. I got a more than decent doctoral thesis out of it, but at the same time, this kind of work, it always felt rather limited to me.
Limited how?
How do you think?
Well, they were just giving wrong answers.
And
so there was little at stake.
I want to take the study of conformity to a whole new place. I want to add real stakes. I want to give it significance. I've seen firsthand that people in a room will give in to pressure and respond incorrectly to benign questions, simply because those around them have responded incorrectly. But what does that really show us? I want to see if in that same room, if in that same setting, you can get someone to submit to pressure and do something of real consequence. As a Jew, as someone who has immense difficulty fathoming what the Germans... We need to understand just how far people will actually allow themselves to go. Getting people to give wrong answers, it isn't enough. But to compel them, to actually compel someone to take aggressive action in a manner which runs completely counter to their conscience, within the confines of a laboratory, no less. Now that is something. That is peering behind a door that has not yet been opened. A door people would rather keep locked. I want to pry open that door and truly understand why a person would allow themselves to be pressured into doing something unconscionable.
I still don't get why they listen to me. I know that I'm pressuring them to continue, but Saul with his hollering, with his expressions of pain, in a way, he's also pressuring them to stop.
That's the whole point. They would rather cause him harm than disobey you.
But why? Why do they listen to me?
Why? Because you're the one in charge.
Feels a little strange being back here, Francis.
Yeah?
Like I'm some kind of outlaw back in town.
I would have been happy to come down to Stanford to see you, Mitch.
Oh, no, it's okay. I mean, I missed the pizza here, honestly. We don't have pizza like Sally's down in Stanford.
It is good pizza.
So, what did you think about that debate the other night?
I don't know. What did you think?
I thought it was a heck of a lot better than the first 2.
I agree. Although, I don't see what the big deal was about Kennedy having notes. The Republicans have been hammering him like he'd committed a crime just because he had a few stupid notes at a debate.
It was a clear violation of the rules.
It's not like the notes really helped him anyway.
Hey, he agreed there would be no prepared notes. That was the deal. You weren't actually thinking of voting for Kennedy, are you?
I don't know. I'm still undecided.
Well, I saw in the paper today that they just did a Yale student poll, and it was 2-1 for Nixon. So, just be prepared to be backing the wrong horse if you do.
I'll keep that in mind. So, how's it been with your folks?
Are you kidding me, pal? I was kicked out of school. Mitchell Halverson III was all over the newspapers for all the wrong reasons. How the hell do you think it's been? How's it been with my folks? I'm enlisting.
What?
I'll be down at Fort Dix after the weekend.
You're going into the Army?
2 months of basic, 6 months active duty in total, then hopefully I'll come back to school next fall. Of course, I'll also have 5 years active reserve, weekly meetings, a couple of weeks in the summer.
And when did you decide all this?
Let's just say it was kind of decided for me. Given that I was already staring at a semester out of school, my old man thought it would be good for me to just take the year and get my service out of the way. If you think about it, I guess it does kind of make sense. This way I won't have to worry about being drafted when I come back for my senior year or while I'm in law school or whatnot.
Jeez, Fort Dix.
Tell me about it. It shouldn't be too bad, though. After basic, I'll probably just get stuck with some dumb desk job. I honestly can't wait to get out of that house, even if I am headed to an army base. I hope that food gets here soon. I'm famished, and that smell of pizza is killing me.
Look, I know this whole thing hasn't been easy for you, Mitch. And I do appreciate that you didn't give them my name.
I'm not a rat, Francis.
I know that.
I don't rat out my friends. Sperry, on the other hand, that guy was all set to give up names.
Doesn't surprise me. He's been a weasel since Andover.
You know, I actually had to talk Sperry down. I mean, fair or not, adding even more names would have just made that whole thing worse for everyone involved.
Do you have any idea whatever happened to her? The girl?
How the hell should I know?
I thought maybe you might have heard something.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Her parents probably have her locked up good. What do you care, anyway, Francis?
No, I was...
You were what?
I was just hoping I could maybe find her.
Find her? What is that, some kind of joke?
No. No joke.
Why the hell do you want to find her?
I just do. I want to talk to her.
What's going on, Francis? I mean, seriously, what is this about?
Listen.
Wait a second. Is that why I'm here? I mean, did you call me up to meet because you want to track down the girl who got me kicked out of school? Is that what this is really about?
Look, Mitch.
I don't believe this. You got away with it, Francis.
I just want to talk with her, Mitch.
I mean, come on. You got off scot-free, you lucky duck.
I know that.
You're still in school. Your parents didn't have to see your name smeared in the newspapers. I mean, do you have any idea what it's like to have your name printed in the New York Times for something like that? Do you have any concept of what that's like? I cannot believe you dragged me to New Haven for this.
I know they lived in Hamden. I just need their last name.
You are out of your mind.
I know it sounds crazy.
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Look, I wouldn't ask you if it wasn't important, Mitch.
I don't want to talk about this. I mean it. End of conversation. We sit here, we eat the delicious pizza that's about to come out of that oven, and not another word about it. This is my last taste of Sally's before I enlist. I want to enjoy it. Is that really too much to ask? Going to get myself another Pabst. You want one?
No, thanks. I'm okay.
Right, Harold. Now, you read out those words clearly to the learner.
Red barn, bright star, tall building, fast horse, wide road, big cake, sad girl, shiny bike, slow dog, sweet plum, wet towel, happy boy, cold drink, strong breeze, soft pillow, old book, green plant, hungry cat, loud bird, hard hat. So now I read him these questions here.
Yes, you can begin with the test portion.
Red. Sun, bird, barn, hat.
Barn.
That's correct. Bright. Light, star, moon, boy.
Star.
Correct again. Tall. Tree, girl, building, bear.
Tree.
That answer is incorrect. So what now? Now I give him the 30-volt shock?
First, you should tell him you're giving him 30 volts, then give him the shock, and then read him the correct response.
All right, okay. I'm giving you 30 volts.
And now read him the correct response, please.
Oh, right. Got it. Sorry. The correct answer is tall building. Fast. Car, horse, dog, bike.
Horse.
Correct. Wide. Road, door, house, gap.
Door.
That is incorrect. 60 volts. Wide road is the correct answer. Big. Boy, cat, cake, plate.
Cake.
Correct. Sad. Face, girl, song, poem.
Face.
Incorrect. 90 volts.
Please read him the correct response.
The correct response is sad girl.
Continue, please.
Shiny. Penny, shoe, bike, car.
Shoe.
That is incorrect. I have to give you 120 volts now. Are you sure he's okay in there?
Please read him the correct response and then continue.
Okay. The correct answer is shiny bike. Slow. Man, horse, dog, rabbit.
Dog.
Correct. Sweet. Girl, cake, candy, plum.
Candy.
Incorrect. I'm giving you 150 volts.
Please read him the correct response.
The correct answer is sweet plum. Look, are you sure this is not hurting him?
The shocks can be initially painful.
It just sounds like
they
it hurt
aren't
him.
dangerous.
Are you sure? Because I don't want to hurt the guy.
Continue, please. Please continue. Please continue.
Wet. Bird, towel, shirt, floor.
Towel.
Correct. Happy. Boy, base, time, girl.
Boy.
Correct. Cold. Wind, room, drink, look.
Room.
Incorrect. 180 volts. The correct answer is cold drink. Strong. Man, smell, breeze, arm.
Smell.
Incorrect. Do I really have to give him this?
Yes.
I think it's really starting to hurt him.
As I said before, the shocks can be painful, but they are not dangerous.
I really don't feel... I'm just not comfortable doing this.
Tell him you're giving him 210 volts, give him the shock, and read him the correct response. Read him the correct response. It's important for the experiment that you continue. Please continue. Please continue.
210 volts.
Let me out of here! Let me out of here!
That's it.
Let me out of here!
That's it. That's it.
I don't want to be a part of this experiment anymore!
I can't do it anymore.
Let me out of here!
Please read him the correct response.
I said, let me out of here!
Did you not hear that?
Please read him the correct response.
The guy wants out. He wants out. I won't do it.
The experiment requires that you continue.
Look, I will give you back your money. You can have your money back.
That money is yours to
I
keep.
don't want it. I just want to go.
The money is yours to keep. Please continue.
Did you hear the way he screamed?
Please continue.
Did you not hear the guy holler?
It's essential that you continue.
I don't believe this.
The experiment requires that you continue. Now please sit down and read him the correct response. Sit down and read him the correct response. Read him the correct response, please. Please read him the correct response.
Strong breeze is the correct answer.
Please continue. It's essential that you continue. Please continue.
Soft. Touch, blanket, hair, pillow.
Pillow.
That's correct. Old. Woman, house, book, road.
House.
Incorrect. 240 volts.
Part 1 of Please Continue by Frank Basloe. Episode 2's out right now. The Relativity Series is produced by LA Theater Works. Lead funding for the Relativity Series is provided by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, bridging science and the arts in the modern world.